So now, up from the clouds, I have the pleasure to introduce to that very stage someone who all his life has been creating opportunities for people to extend. He's a CTO. I know we have two different events. One is the marketing event, the other one is the technology event. Here is the main stage now with the digital innovation moving on. Upstairs will be the challenger stage. So you will be able to interact and to talk to many different people, to many different topics, to explore these opportunities. Upstairs, Igor Bjoker and Marc Goldberg will be your hosts. If they're here in the stage just before we start, Marc and Igor, are you here? Okay, this is Marc. Please a round for applause of Marc. He will be rocking the stage upstairs. He will be the challenger. And now, from, as I said, up in the clouds, I have Marc Jones, the CTO of SoftLayer. Marc, please join me on the stage. Oh, it's literally up from the clouds, isn't it? Thank you for being here. Pleasure having you on board. So, how do you find it? It's a different format. Do you enjoy it here?
I do. I like the smaller format. It feels a little bit closer, tighter, more social activity, I think. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm hoping that you're going to be enjoying it. I would like to ask you to bring me the clicker from the speaker's room so I can give it to Marc. And Marc, I will leave you here to rock the stage. Actually, you will be speaking upstairs, challenged by Marc.
Yes.
In the challenger stage, and then we will be having a press conference with all the media at the same place. So I will be leaving. Please give me the clicker, or if it's not coming, you can start. They will click it for you, and you'll get the
all right.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Thank you. All right. So my name is Marc Jones, CTO at SoftLayer. And for those of you that aren't familiar, SoftLayer, founded in 2005, global cloud infrastructure as a service provider. In 2013, we were acquired by IBM, and so now we are SoftLayer, an IBM company. And it's really given myself and the entire team a unique perspective, I think. When we started off in 2005 and really up to the IBM acquisition, focused on technically savvy, born on the web companies, right? We had very few enterprises that were our customer base. Since the IBM acquisition, almost 2.5 years ago now, we've brought on a substantial number of enterprises, large enterprises that are making the transition to cloud. And so it really gives us the perspective all the way from the startup through the born on the web, technically savvy company, and now to the enterprise. And that's really kind of the basis of my talk today, is to see this evolution of cloud. I've been doing cloud for over 8 years now. Feels like an eternity in cloud time. But a lot has happened. So first of all, we talk about cloud. We still tend to talk about cloud in the singular, the cloud, or the cloud provider, a set of services from a single provider. And we also look at cloud as a commodity, that it's a race to the bottom in terms of price. It's about really becoming utility as fast as possible. And what we see today is that cloud looks like this. It's many clouds, not just many clouds from a provider standpoint, but from a functionality standpoint. When you look at the breadth of products and services today, it runs the gamut. So our original taxonomy really centered around this notion of IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So infrastructure, platform, and software. But we're expanding that now. And a lot of this expansion, this evolution of cloud, is because of cloud itself. It's changed the way that companies and developers consume compute, consume storage, consume network. And it's evolving an entire industry, and it's changing the way that companies do business. And because of that, this choice is much larger today than it ever has been before. So when we look at cloud and we talk about kind of the earlier days of cloud, it was really about abstraction, meaning you as a consumer shouldn't care about the underlying hardware. You shouldn't care about how it's architected, how it's designed, how it's deployed. But we've seen a change in the last couple of years. One of the key tenets that we've always had at SoftLayer has been transparency. We wanted our customers to know which data center they were in, which rack they were in. We wanted them to know about the servers that they're actually running on. down to the model number, down to the firmware of the drives. Complete transparency. A lot of cloud providers, it was really more about you get a VM, and it was about this new definition of what it was, a vCPU or a certain type of compute unit. But we've seen an evolution now where most cloud providers are actually exposing and telling you what the underlying hardware is that is powering their cloud and ultimately powering your workloads. And that is a big deal for a lot of customers. So when you look at what's happening in the hardware space, there's tremendous innovation happening, and that innovation is going straight to cloud. Previously, cloud was really put together by off-the-shelf hardware and components. Now we're seeing more and more focus on cloud-specific technologies. Intel driving their CPUs, really putting more of a focus on cloud providers. Power from IBM, really focusing on cloud workloads. NVIDIA with the GPUs. And then the networking providers are evolving at a pretty rapid pace. Networking is really one of the key foundational pieces of cloud, and you're seeing tremendous innovation from the networking providers. On the software side, it is happening incredibly fast, right? So everybody talks about today it's software-defined everything, and you can everything from compute to the network to the actual applications and services. But you're seeing this focus around open stack, right? The open cloud, really focused on open standards in a cloud environment that you can use to not only power your applications in the cloud, but if you want to run it locally, if you want to run it on your own servers, you can, and know that you have portability across environments. Cloud Foundry for language-specific runtimes, where you just have to worry about writing code and deploying it. And then Docker containers, really taking the industry by storm as an easier way to deploy code, to deploy applications and services. And Node.js, another easy-to-use language runtime that you can deploy. The point here is that everything is really becoming more and more open. When you embrace these open standards, it makes it much easier to avoid any sort of lock-in, and it makes portability, not just across cloud providers if that's what you want to do, but it makes it to where you can move environments, deployment environments, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then geography, right? Everything is global today. There really is no such thing as I'm going to write an app, I'm going to deploy it, and I only care about it running in my local data center targeting local customers. Most companies, large and small, your customer base is the world. And so location matters. The network matters. So having a choice as to where you deploy your applications and services is important. It's important for where your end customers are. If you know they're in a specific region, you can deploy in that region. Or if it's something like IoT, where you have devices globally, you might want to deploy applications and services around the world so that you have a better experience for your customers. So ultimately what that leads us to is 3 deployment models that we see becoming very common today, and this is why we tend to look at this as this notion of cloud without borders. Public cloud, which is what we've all come to know as the most common deployment target for applications and services today. But we're seeing more and more deployments on dedicated. What that means is using a cloud provider, but installing and operating your own environments that's dedicated just to you. So you're able to take advantage of a lot of the key tenets of cloud, infinite compute, rapid scale, but you're creating an environment that is just your own. And then local. A lot of companies still have workloads that they do not want to move to the cloud, or they can't move to the cloud yet. So they want to do local deployments. That could be everything from production workloads to dev and test. So if you have all of your development teams local, they may want to keep those deployments local. So having a choice on where you deploy, how you deploy, and what tools and ultimately runtimes you use becomes incredibly important. This is a really, really simple example to say that if you have one of your developers writing code, does a commit to GitHub, and with that commit, there's an automatic trigger that happens. So it kicks off a build, right? Checks out the code, builds your code, runs tests against that code to validate that everything is functioning as it should. From that point, then you can actually build a Docker image, check it into your Docker registry, and then have another automated process that can deploy the code. Because of a lot of this is automated, because of the nature of the tools today, you can actually have it to where that finalized build of your Docker image could be deployed to SoftLayer, say to the public cloud, but you could also deploy it at the same time to if you had an OpenStack dedicated instance running in the cloud. Now this may happen where customers want to have a dedicated environment that they want to manage for their steady state workloads, but they want to be able to leverage cloud for bursting. So if you have a need for excess capacity, then you can leverage public cloud. Well, leveraging these new tools, these new capabilities, it gives you a very easy way to have multiple deployment targets to power your applications. So ultimately, this is what we end up with today. So still very much a similar taxonomy, although the lines are really blurring here. So infrastructure, core infrastructure that powers your applications, compute, network, storage. The platform layer is really starting to expand to where it's not just this notion of a pure play PaaS, but it's a new way to do it. It's language runtimes like Cloud Foundry. It's Docker. It is a set of services that you can consume within your applications. Software, whether it's a SaaS service that you consume or it's software that you write yourself. And then now this notion of solutions, which is really taking all of the underlying capabilities and putting it together for industry-specific solutions that customers are really looking for today. The booming area right now is IoT, developing IoT-based solutions that make it easier for companies doing IoT to take advantage of the platform. When you embrace open standards, it gives you this capability to deploy to the destination of your choice, local, public, and dedicated. And then wrapping around this is this notion of service management and seamless delivery. So again, because of the tooling that's evolving as part of the cloud evolution, it's making it easier not just to actually run applications in the cloud, but it's making it easier from upfront development all the way through deployment and then ultimately management afterwards. So when we look at cloud at work, what does that actually mean? So big data, we've heard a lot about it, and for the longest time I really felt like buzzword, it's going to evolve, but the reality is that this is the basis of a lot of customers. When I look at our customer base, most of our top customers, and I say top 25, top 50 and beyond, they're using big data in some form or fashion. That's not to say that they're big data companies, but they're using big data to power their companies, and it's growing at an incredible pace. When you look at it from a lot of companies that use it to collect the data that they're generating, store it and analyze it, that was really kind of the genesis of big data. But now you're seeing this evolution where companies are starting to capture every data point they possibly can, and they store it. And that's whether they're going to use it now or they're going to use it later. And when you look at it from an advertising perspective or a marketing perspective, that data can be a gold mine. It's really at that point about capturing data and applying analytics to it. Scale out services. So this is really that notion of being able to support your end users, whether it's 100, 100,000, or 10 million, and being able to do that in a seamless fashion that makes it easier for customers to consume. Everything from Kulu, who's a gaming customer of ours, to WhatsApp, right? Probably the largest messaging company in the world. Entire infrastructure runs on SoftLayer, and that is scale. And so the learnings that we can take from that and apply these scale-out services, we have companies that are doing real-time ad placement where you have to get a request, generate a response back in 100 milliseconds. And you can only do that if you have a performant platform that's able to scale and handle that kind of load. And then IoT. I touched on it earlier, but this is really growing at a rapid pace. Everything from wearables like Fitbit to Nest and the connected home, generating a lot of data. All of that data is being captured and is being sent back to, in most cases, the cloud to store all of that data. Fitbit's another great example of a customer that is running on the SoftLayer platform. So when we look at cloud and this notion of cloud without borders, really the intent of this last slide is to show that what is inside of your cloud is different than what is inside of your cloud. You will ultimately build a cloud out that meets the needs of your workloads and needs to be specific to you. And that is pulling in all of these services, putting it together in a way that serves your workloads best for your company. And it will continue to evolve. The choices, the options we have, is really growing at a rapid pace, probably the most I've ever seen in the industry, and that pace of innovation is only going to continue to accelerate. So with that, I'm going to pause there. If you have any questions for me, if you'd like to talk about cloud or learn more about SoftLayer, we have a booth right outside. Thank you very much. Have a great show.